Hello, girls and boys. Welcome to Storytime Fun. We hope you enjoy it. Today's story is a Walt Disney Productions story called Pete's Dragon. One day, a boy named Pete walked into a little town by the sea. Pete had no family, but he did have a pet dragon named Elliot. Elliot was a wonderful, friendly dragon. He had green scales and purple wings and a big, long tail, and he could fly. He could breathe fire out through his mouth. When he didn't want anyone to see him, he could make himself invisible. Pete and Elliot soon found a cave to spend the night in. They had just settled in when they saw a young woman peering through the cave entrance. "Hi," she said to Pete. "My name's Nora. What's yours?" "I'm Pete, and this is my dragon, Elliot," Pete answered. "It's kind of a cold place to spend the night, isn't it?" Nora asked Pete. "Why don't you stay at the lighthouse with my dad and me? I'd ask Elliot to stay too, but I'm afraid he won't fit." Pete was sorry to leave Elliot alone in the cave, but the kindly dragon didn't mind. He was happy that Pete would have a nice, warm place to stay anyway. So Pete moved into the big lighthouse with Nora and her father, Lampy. The next day, Nora took Pete into town and bought him some new clothes. Then they went to the schoolhouse. Elliot went with them. He wanted to go to school, too. When the teacher saw Elliot, she would not let him into the school. "I'm sorry," she told Pete, "but dragons are not allowed in school. Besides, Elliot won't fit." Elliot was sad, but he waited patiently outside on the playground. After a while, the children came outside for recess. Elliot played with the children then, and they had lots of fun. They played Ring Around the Dragon, and then Dragon in the Middle. But soon the bell rang, and it was time for the children to go back in. Elliot was left alone again. After school, Pete rode home on Elliot's back. They both noticed that the sky was growing dark and cloudy. "Let's hurry, Elliot," Pete said. "It looks as though there's a storm coming." Later, Pete was eating dinner at the lighthouse with Nora and Lampy. Suddenly, there was a bright flash of lightning and a loud crash of thunder. "My goodness," exclaimed Nora. "It must be a terrible storm. We'd better check the lamp." Nora and Lampy had to be sure the lamp in the lighthouse was lit all the time so ships could find their way to shore. Nora led the way up the winding stairs to the very top room where the big lamp was. When she got there, she cried, "Oh no! The lamp has gone out!" It was true. The wick of the big lamp was wet, and Lampy and Nora couldn't light it again. As they tried to get the lamp lit, they heard a sound out at sea. "It's a ship's foghorn!" Lampy shouted. "If we can't get the lamp started, the ship will be lost. It'll run into the rocks." "This is a job for Elliot," said Pete. He turned and raced down the stairs. Pete ran along the beach to the cave. Big waves were crashing against the shore and rain was pouring down. Pete found Elliot asleep in the cave. "Wake up, Elliot! You've got to help us!" he cried. He shook the big dragon's leg and patted his face. Elliot woke up and rubbed his eyes sleepily. When Pete told him about the problem, he jumped up. He left the cave and rushed to the lighthouse. Elliot squeezed into the lighthouse and up the winding stairs. It was a tight fit because Elliot was a big dragon. When he reached the tiny room at the top, he took a deep breath and he blew a great blast of fiery breath upon the wick of the lamp. The lamp was lit again. Now the light shone brightly over the stormy sea. The ship was able to find its way safely to land. Elliot was a hero. Everyone was grateful to Pete and his dragon. Only one thing still made Elliot unhappy. He couldn't go to school with Pete and the other children. The townspeople got together and they made a decision. Whenever the weather was warm and sunny, classes would be held outside so that Elliot could watch and listen to everything that happened. And the teacher agreed that maybe dragons should be allowed at school. Well, Pete's dragon, anyway. That's it for today. See you next time.